It is officially the bye week, but not for us. We're here. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Rube, how you doing?
Doing well. Looking forward to a few days off, just like the team is.
Yeah,
I'm having a better year though.
Yeah, you're not 2-2. You're 4-0. You're doing well. The team has a lot to work on. The bye week coming at a pretty good time. Typically a week 5 bye could be an issue. It's so early in the season, but the way things have gone, the way this team has been injured, the way they're coming off the ugly loss in Tampa, I really do think it's coming at a good time for them.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about this during the summer, that when you start out with a Brazil trip, which I know took a lot out of you think about how the team responds to that. And then you have a Monday night game and then a short week on the road in New Orleans, and then another road game. So now you've been on the road 3 out of 4 weeks, and these aren't just like bus trips up to East Rutherford or down to Baltimore. These are all flights and challenging circumstances, and it takes a lot out of you. And I think the bye probably couldn't have come at a better time. I'm not sure they'll be saying that around week 16, but maybe they can earn another bye in the first round of the playoffs.
Maybe, we'll see about that.
Maybe not.
They have a lot to work on, and that's what the bye week is for. The players will get away for a little bit, but the coaches will be in meetings. They'll be grinding tape. It's not a huge sample size, just 4 games, but it's enough to look at and to figure out. Maybe it's not as much tendencies because you probably haven't developed those as much, but you got to figure out some answers here on both sides of the football.
Yeah, I feel like in normal bye week, you're doing a lot of quality control stuff. Their issues are a lot bigger than are we showing tendencies on 3rd and long or whatever. They got to figure out why they can't tackle, why they're so inconsistent in so many areas.
Why they can't score in the first quarter.
6 straight games. You can't put the last 2 on, or the first 2 in that stretch on Kellen Moore. But yeah, slow starts, poor tackling, just inconsistent coverage. There's so many issues. Protection has been up and down. There's just a lot to look at. And, you didn't have AJ for 3 of those 4 games. You take that into account to some degree, but a lot of these things really go beyond injuries and personnel. They have to do with kind of the team. So there's a lot to work on, and they'll be busy these next 6 days.
Yeah, certainly the injury status, like they'll get some help here. We would think AJ will definitely be back. I would think Lane will be back. He was pretty close to playing on Sunday. Devontae, I guess we don't know, but you would hope that that much time he'd be able to recover and be back on the field. So from that perspective, they're going to get healthier. Some of their most important players will be back. So that's a good sign. Yeah.
By the Browns, it'll be 3 weeks for Devontae. It was very serious injury. I don't think it's a slam dunk he'll be back, but I think he's got a shot.
Yeah. And look, it's not like that'll solve all their problems. Those guys don't play defense, but I think it will solve a lot of the problems offensively. But yeah, a busy week for the coaches. We just got back from the NovaCare complex talking to Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, Michael Clay.
They switched the order up on us.
They did. I think it's typically like whoever's ready.
It usually goes Vic, Kellen, and Michael Clay. But man, Michael Clay came barreling in right after Vic.
I know. I had to change the order in my notebook.
It really threw a lot of people off.
We'll go through some of the takeaways from those guys. We want to talk about Darius Slay a little bit. He's obviously a hot topic in the city right now. Not even
been in that store,
for his play. Have I ever been in a hot topic? I have been, yes.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Been to a mall. I remember being like 12 going into a hot topic thinking like, oh, we probably shouldn't be in here. There's some risky stuff in here.
Such a rebel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No big deal. This is a 12-year-old rebel I was in the suburbs.
And still are.
Yeah. I'm still a 12-year-old rebel.
In some ways.
Okay.
Anyway.
We also want to kind of get our takes on the concern meter for a lot of the Eagles' issues.
Call it the worry meter.
I could call it the worry meter. You're right. That's a good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Maybe you get Finer to put together a worry meter, like you have like a thermometer thing and that goes up and down.
I like that. Until then, we'll just go on a 1 to 10 scale. We'll do that later. We have a bunch of questions too. some really fun ones, emails coming in during the game on Sunday. Yeah,
Those
pretty
are always
cathartic for some people. But let's start with the coordinators. We'll start with Vic Fangio. That's the order they went in, and we'll start there too. Always honest from Vic. What was one of your biggest takeaways from him?
Yeah, he was asked about CJ, and he was like, "What concerns you most about the way he's playing?" And he just didn't hesitate and just said, "Tackling." Just one word: his tackling. He's got to get better, and he's not the only guy that's had issues with tackling. I think N'Kobe's been shaky at times, really shaky in the last game. Reed has had his issues with tackling. Really, everybody has to some extent. But CJ's probably been the biggest offender, I guess. And when he's not picking off passes, he's not an elite player. And I love what he brings to the energy and the edge and all that stuff. But if he's missing tackles, I don't care how much energy he has. He's just giving the other team free yards, and it's a concern.
Yeah, and a lot of his missed tackles aren't the actual tackle. It's like the angle to it. And I think that's like a big misnomer about missed tackles, that it's all about wrapping up and finishing. A lot of times it's about being in the right position to make your life easier. I know Vic Fangio said one of the things he's noticing is guys leaving their feet when they're making tackles, but it was an issue. That count is going to be different for a game because it's a subjective stat. They counted 15.
They counted 15. Let's see. Pro Football Focus had 10.
10.
And somebody had 16.
16 was NFL Next Gen Stats.
I haven't seen stat heads yet. They're a little slower putting them together. But yeah, whatever the count is, 10 seems low to me. They only had N'Kobe with 1. I had him with 36.
No, they had him with 4, I think.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I misread that. But in any case, it's a problem. And there's no easy fix for it. And they're not the only team that doesn't practice live tackling. The CBA pretty much at this point of the year, you're very, very limited how many times you can put pads on. And I don't think that's the answer. I don't think training camp is the reason why they're not tackling well now. I think it's more of guys just not understanding where a player's going to be and taking bad angles I totally agree. I don't think it's a technique thing. I think
some of them are like,
it's a recognition thing.
Avante tries to blow up Chris Godwin. It's a play he's got to make. You got to wrap up.
Just
at least, it can't go for a big gain.
Yeah. And there's
a lot of area between a TFL and whatever. It was like a 14-yard gain.
Yeah. That was one of the worst ones. I think, I saw somewhere the Bucs had 120 extra yards, 122 extra yards from those missed tackles.
That was Next Gen Stats. I forget the exact number, but it was the second most given up by any team in a game this season.
Yeah, I'd like to see who had the most. Probably the Panthers, but it was bad. And when you think about, and I think it all goes together. And I tried to write about this in my 10 obs after the game, like. You factor in the weather and the heat and wanting to keep the Eagles defense on the field, which they did for 36 and a half minutes, quick passes, high percentage plays, and you bank on missed tackles and you keep moving the sticks and you keep the defense out there. They didn't throw deep a whole lot, if at all. It was all just short stuff, missed tackles, move the sticks, keep them out there and score. And they did it over and over and over. And by the time they'd done it 3 times, the game was really over for all intents and purposes. So I thought it was a great game plan. And, like Vic said, he seemed surprised that they had done that.
Baker Mayfield's time to throw in this game was extremely quick.
Yeah. That's what he does. He gets really
No, he doesn't,
quick.
though. Coming into this game, he was holding the football more.
In his career, he's been a guy that gets rid of it quick and is accurate. And if you can do those 2 things, and the team's going to miss a lot of tackles, it's a pretty good template. And I think we're going to see more teams try to do that. Look, I don't think Deshaun Watson. I think some quarterbacks that's not what they do well. Drew Brees was like the best at it. He never threw deep. It was just all quick stuff, get it out of your hands, get into the guy's hands. And next thing you know, the time of possession stats are 37 to 23. So, yeah, it worked. It worked certainly this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that it all kind of goes together, because that was one of the things I really wanted to find out was about the game plan and, their lack of press coverage. They were in man early in this game, and Vic kind of made it seem like sometimes it's up to the players. Like, they're given the autonomy to decide when they press, when they don't. So it seems like it's a combination of both things. I kind of pressed him on this, no pun intended, but like, what is it? Because clearly they were giving too much space. The quick game was working. They weren't disrupting any of the routes at or near the line of scrimmage. It was a problem in this game. He basically said, like, sometimes they have some leeway to decide on their own, but he's got to coach it better. I mean, if they have the leeway and you see that, you got to tell them, hey, get up on the line. Yeah. And look, it's not what this defense does. This defense is not designed to be aggressive like that. But it's a real problem when you don't have pass rush and you're not getting to the quarterback anyway. Well, now the ball's coming out quick. You've got no prayer if you're giving them free releases.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing that neutralizes pressure better than getting rid of the ball quick if you do generate pressure in the first place. And the other thing is, if you come up like that, you're risking giving up the big play. That's why they don't do it. But at some point, he's got to adjust, and like you got to stop them from doing what they're doing, because it's killing us.
Yeah, you got to adjust, and it seems like it just took way too long.
Yeah.
For that adjustment to happen, whether that's coaching, whether that's the players. I mean, whatever happens, like you got to make the correction. If you're Vic Fangio, ultimately, like, that falls on you, even if it's up to the players tell them.
Right.
So I think that's really kind of where the defense got off the rails in this game.
Yeah.
Something else from Vic?
Well, he talked about Sidney Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I felt good that the guy that asked the question asked about Sidney Jones, because I've made that mistake many times. He said he expects to have him back, at least his window open when they get back. He said that's been the plan. He said, don't hold me to it. Well, I'm holding you to it, because he got hurt in January. And
yeah, he said as far as he knows, like, that was the plan all along the timeline. He hasn't heard anything different.
Right. So and look, Sidney looks, I mean, he's not going to be able to come out and play against the Browns, but if I wouldn't think.
I don't know about that.
They might need him. He looks good. We've seen him. Gosh, we've seen him since OTAs out there. I know he's frustrated. He hasn't played football in so long. He's handled this really well. He's always in the locker room. He probably talks more than any of the other safeties to the media. It's just, he's so bored, I think. But they could use him, and Vic likes him just from the film. But he did also warn that it's going to take a while. He's got to, what do you say? He's got to like condense his OTAs and training camp into like just a few days. They could use him. He also said that when a guy misses that much time and comes back, you want to limit him to one position. And Sidney's a guy who plays pretty much.
Yeah. What position do you think that is?
I don't think slot. I think it'll be safety.
I think it'll be the dime player.
Maybe to start out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the way for him to get on the field.
I just don't know if he's going to be on the field that quick.
But we're talking about like a small package of plays. I think that's like the perfect way to do it.
Maybe.
Beginning of the season, it was Cooper DeJean. Then they moved to Keely Ringo, who I don't know. Keely's always been a boundary corner. I don't know if that's necessarily in his wheelhouse.
Well, it's definitely in Sidney's wheelhouse. I wonder if they have bigger plans for him. And
what would the bigger plans be, though?
I don't know.
There's not a position.
I mean, safety. Your third safety is probably going to play more than the guy in dime.
Not if they're
healthy. But yeah. I mean, if it was Sunday, he would have.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just think that's what but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think Cooper, we'll get to that. I think he's earmarked for the slot at some point.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because they do kind of go together. Yeah. Vic Fangio was asked, like, is Cooper DeJean coming for this job, basically? And he said, yeah, like they're bringing him along, and it seems very obvious to me.
It's getting closer.
Yeah, Cooper is closing in on being ready to be the nickel. I think if he doesn't get hurt in training camp, that's already
Sure.
his position. Avante hasn't been good.
Hasn't been good.
You know, I think Vic tried to be diplomatic about it, which he should. You don't want to throw.
He also said he's made mistakes. He said, I mean, Avante doesn't look like the same guy. We talked about it Sunday. He just, I don't know. He's 29. He's had a ton of injuries. They tend to add up, in general with players. So, yeah, I think he's getting close. I would think Cooper's getting close to that. I mean, remember, they already cut Avante once, during the offseason, brought him back. But, he's been a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, look, I if it were up to me, Cooper DeJean would be the nickel coming out of the bye week.
I think there's a chance that happens.
I do too. I don't think Vic says this if they're not at least thinking about it or if they're not getting close to it. I think that's very much in play, and I think it might help them. I guess you worry about like if the kid's not ready, do you put him in? But they need him. Like if he's an upgrade, you have to play him.
Yeah. One small part of the equation is, he's a kid who missed a month in training camp or 3.5 weeks, I guess. He's a rookie. He's already returning punts, which is very different in the NFL and college. Now you're going to give him the slot. Maybe they wait till Covey comes back, but that could be another month and a half. So can he handle punts and slot?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but that might make the most sense.
I think it does. I think it's time. I think they just have to do it.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Anything else from Vic that is in your mind?
No, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, the other thing, he mentioned that Reed Blankenship was ill entering the game. He said he thinks it was food poisoning. So then obviously if you're sick with food poisoning and then you're playing in that heat, it's gonna and you understand why Reed left that game early. Wasn't playing well, so I don't know if it really hurt the Eagles when he left the game. He was, I'm sure the illness and the heat was bothering him way more than everyone else, so maybe that affected the play. But he wasn't very good early in that game.
Yeah.
While you were talking about the missed tackles, I pulled up the PFF numbers.
Okay.
This is where this is the only place it's sortable by missed tackle per player. You're right. CJ Gardner-Johnson leads the team with 8. Second, Reed Blankenship with 6. Third, Nakobe Dean with 5. Zach Bond and Slay with 3.
I think all of Bonds were in the same game.
Yeah. Quinyon Mitchell, Jordan Davis with 2, and then 4 players with 1 apiece. A subjective stat, but at least I think that kind of passes the eye test that CJ's been the biggest culprit.
Yeah. I'm just going to punch up the stat head numbers here real quick and see how they compare.
Well, stat head doesn't have the missed tackles from Sunday
yet. I think they do now. They don't now. They don't.
I think they populate on Wednesdays.
So they have Reed with 7.
Okay.
And Nakobe with 4, CJ with 4, Zach Bond with 3. It says 4 games. Huff with 3.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe they did
with
update.
2. Jordan Davis, BG, Avante, McCollum, Slay, Nolan Smith, and Milton Williams with 1 each. I'm surprised Nolan Smith got close enough to a offensive player to miss a tackle.
Honestly, Nolan Smith looks okay setting the edge.
Yeah.
Which is not why they drafted him, but yeah. I don't want to get off on that tangent.
First round edge setter.
Let's go to Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
A little more diplomatic than Vic Fangio, a little less to the point than Vic Fangio. We were joking, like, what would it be like if Vic was the offensive coordinator and was getting asked about Jalen Hurts? Like, it would probably create some issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got to stop throwing interceptions. He just keeps throwing them every game. Another turnover. What's he got? 7 of them? But unfortunately, we can't. We should try. If we ask him about Jalen, he'd probably answer. Kellen Moore, he talked in generalities. He wouldn't talk about any specific players, or he just kept saying we have to coach him better, call better plays, kept saying sequence plays. And I'm sure that's part of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's also needs players who are playing better, especially the quarterback.
Yeah, that would help. But, I think.
But not just the quarterback.
A lot of the failure for Sunday offensively comes down to to the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. In a game where you're without three of your best players, you want to see the quarterback step up. You want to see the offensive coordinator with all these new ideas, utilize them and get things to happen. And that's not to say like a drop by Dallas Goedert wasn't huge or this play, but I don't know. I thought it was a disappointing performance from both of those two people.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I also put Nick in the equation as well, just because I don't think he had anybody ready to play, and that's on the head coach.
Yeah, I'm just talking like offensively specifically.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, we didn't talk to Nick today, so but yeah, I mean, I just looked at those first three drives, and yeah, Jalen was bad, Kellen was bad, but it just looked like a team that wasn't ready to play. So I think that's part of it all. But yeah, he was it was a disappointing day for both of them. And I feel like Kellen wasn't really able to help Jalen hasn't been able to help Jalen get through his issues.
Let me ask you like a big picture question about what the Eagles are saying publicly about Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni after the game and the following day, really hesitant to put the blame of that fumble on Jalen. And then Kellen Moore in this press conference, really hesitant to single out Jalen on the first play of the game, which was a really big play. I mean, that could have completely changed the tide of that game. Saquon is open. I know it's a tough play. And Kellen said, it's tough for the quarterback to see if there's a safety there and to see Saquon was open. It's a play that
was that intentional tide of the game, Jalen?
Oh, like Alabama? No, it wasn't.
So it was one of your subtle little.
It wasn't. I'll take credit for it.
All right.
What do you make of that? Because I do believe that behind closed doors they're correcting these things.
Yeah. I think
does it worry you that publicly
they're protecting him?
They're protecting him?
It does. I don't know if it worries me, but I don't like it, and I don't really understand it. Are they afraid to hurt his feelings?
I don't know. Like the quarterback is standing there saying he needs to play better.
Right.
Like, why can't the coaches say that?
I wonder if they just think if his relationship is already fragile with Nick, and Nick went out of his way to, he was explaining away sacks that were clearly Jalen's fault by talking about all kinds of extraneous factors. And obviously it's a lot more than a quarterback when there's a sack, but if you hold on to the ball for 12 seconds while there's, traffic all around you, you're going to get sacked. Yeah, it's strange. And I don't expect him to go up there and rip the guy, but there's nothing wrong with saying, like you say, other guys have to play better. You can say, yeah, Jalen's got to use better judgment back there. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And he won't say it.
And if at the root of the issue is their fragile relationship, that's a problem. Like if it's changing the way they speak publicly about the quarterback, it's not a great situation. And then of course you have the Jalen response every time he's asked about Nick. Like I think there are some issues there. I don't think I'm like speaking out of turn.
Yeah, no. And you just hope there are not issues with the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Some other stuff from Kellen. I asked him like why Jahan Dotson is just not involved.
I was trying to ask that. And
okay.
Yeah, you asked it.
Yeah, they traded away a 3rd round pick for this guy. And I know they got other value back, so it was like the value, whatever. They had a 3rd round pick, and they no longer have it because they wanted Jahan Dotson. Through 4 games, he's been almost non-existent in the stat sheet.
Yeah, 25 yards in 4 games, including 3 starts. I looked up the last. I'm thinking like it's like the worst production by an Eagles starting receiver in the last 50 years. And I did a search for it, and I'm coming up with Nelly, with J-Jaw, with Mac Hollins, with like all these guys. Yeah. He's in good company. But this guy was a 1st round pick 2 years ago, fairly high 1st round pick. He's not the new guy anymore. He's been here for 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah, 5, really 6 weeks. And he should be beyond this. And it's not like he's got a bunch of drops. He's not getting, how many times has he been targeted? Like 5? Clearly.
There was one point in Sunday's game where John Ross had more targets than Jahan Dotson.
Yeah. John Ross, who hasn't played. It was his first game in 3 years.
But I think that speaks to one of the things with Jalen, that it takes him a long time to build trust with his receivers
who aren't
AJ and Devontae.
Yeah.
And I asked Kellen Moore about that, if he needs to have more trust in those other guys. He said, no, like it's something that happens naturally, but like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it, in a game without your top two receivers, like it's very clear that if they were going to win that game, they needed a couple of those receivers to make big plays.
Yeah.
And if the quarterback's not trusting them, it's an issue. And it goes back like before this year, right? Like think about we've had the conversation with the second tight end, or like they were trying to find Olamide Zaccheaus or Quez Watkins,
who, by the way, was Washington's leading receiver Sunday.
Yeah, which tells you a lot too, right?
Yeah, 8 for 86.
I think the one guy Jalen trusted was Julio Jones, because he was Julio Jones, but he was a shell of what Julio used to be.
And I think a lot of the interceptions kind of stem from that. Have all his interceptions been passes he was trying to force to AJ or Devontae? Mainly Devontae. But both of them. And I think that's kind of like he'd almost rather throw to Devontae in double coverage than a wide open Paris Campbell or Jahan Dotson. That's a problem. I do think there's something there.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else from Kellen?
No.
Michael Clay, actually some really important questions with Michael Clay. You were asking about Isaiah Rodgers. Well, what did he have to say?
Well, he said that when Isaiah's role changed from vice to gunner, I guess
vice versa.
Well, yeah, vice versa, from gunner to vice. I guess as a gunner, you're allowed to.
Yeah, so that's the rule. A gunner.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, a gunner can push a blocker into a return man, but the flip is not acceptable, and it doesn't come up that often because that's typically a block in the back.
Yeah.
So that's the issue there. And he said he has to coach it better, which is true. Like, part of me is like, you shouldn't have to explain that to a veteran in this league, that even if that wasn't the rule, it's probably not wise to throw a body into your teammate.
Yeah. You get a guy hurt.
Yeah.
And I get that he missed last year. He was out of the game, but I mean, got to know the rules, especially if a big part of your job is special teams now.
But I also agree with Michael Clay that he has to, like, if there's any confusion about that, even if it seems like something they should know, you got to make sure they know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate he took ownership for that one. I asked him about Cooper Jean, like calling the fair catch earlier. That's something that Cooper mentioned after the game. And he said, yeah, like with the way the punts were going, they were really short, high kicks, a lot of hang time, not a lot of distance. So there's less time. He said Cooper's got to kind of get these guys away from him earlier.
Yeah. And he's new at this. That was his second game doing it. And yeah, he'll learn.
Yeah. Anything else from Clay?
No, he just talked about what a heads up play Keely made.
On the scoop and score.
It's funny. Somebody, I wrote that it was the first time Eagles have ever done that. And somebody said, no, an Eagles player did that in 88. And, but the points didn't count. You didn't get points for it. I'm like,
it doesn't. Yeah,
it's not the same thing. He just picked up a ball, and what you do with it if the rule isn't in. But it's a relatively.
So he ran that far for no reason.
Yeah, and the guy had to tweet to me to tell me I was wrong.
Yeah.
Made you feel better, but.
Well, that's a good segue, because someone tweeted at you. It got under your skin a little bit. Did you tweet out your career accomplishments after that?
Wait, what was this?
A guy tweeted at you, picking up on a mistake. Did it bother you?
Oh, see what you got.
Yeah.
Not enough to cite my career accomplishments.
You didn't tweet out about your books.
Didn't tweet out my resume.
Your accomplishment. No, you didn't do any of that.
My Pro Football Writers writing contest honorable mention in '89, feature on Jesse Small.
Okay.
I don't know. No, I didn't feel compelled to do that.
Okay. Darius Slay did.
Slay.
In this case, Darius Slay.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
He deserves Darius for this.
Look, and let's talk about this, because it's become a big topic of conversation. After the game, Slay was on Twitter or X, whatever, and he was seeing some comments from fans. I guess it irked him a little bit. So
always does.
And look, I think that's natural, but you're in a position where you're a public figure and You know this stuff is coming. So he tweeted out in a since deleted post some of his career accomplishments, and all of it is true. 150 pass breakups and counting, 28 picks and counting, 6-time Pro Bowl, All-Pro. When you talk bad about me, don't forget to mention the greatness of me too, with a shrug emoji. On one hand, sure, you've done all that, talk your talk. On the other hand, you got to know it's not going to go over well.
No, you got to read the room a little bit better than that. That's a response for like during the off season if someone's like Slay can't play anymore. I don't think it's a huge thing, but it does bother me. I don't think he should do it. I think it's really bad judgment. It's just a bad look. What bothers me more is his play. I mean, I think he's got 2 interceptions in the last 31 games. But an opposing passer rating is like 121 or something against him. I think he's been awful. But yeah, it's just a bad look. That's not what's the point? Everyone knows you've had a really good career. Not a Hall of Famer. He thinks he is, but
I'm okay with him thinking that. But after he deleted the tweet, he did apologize and said he's got to be better than that. But I think it's a little immature.
He's 33. You're 13.
I mean, 80-year-old could be immature at times, right? Like,
sure, but it's not the kind of thing you expect from a captain, a leader, a guy that's looked up to, in the locker room as, one of the sane voices.
Yeah, you don't expect it. I think it's poor judgment. Now, I don't want to conflate it with he's a bad teammate, a bad captain, because for the most part he is. But there's the second part of the Slay conversation right now. He was on Micah Parsons' podcast, and they were talking about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And I don't want to make too much of what he said because it wasn't like awful. They were kind of like Micah brought up CJ struggling after kind of talking trash, and they laughed about it a little bit. But in this new world, it's a kind of a new world with professional athletes having these outlets. It's not going to sit well that he's on a podcast with a Cowboy.
Yeah, that kind of bothered me.
But also, like talking about one of your teammates publicly, even if you're saying things that are harmless or you think are harmless, I think it's setting yourself up for some trouble.
Yeah, I don't get why he's doing Micah Parsons. I didn't even know Micah Parsons had a podcast. I don't know why he's doing that. He's in your division, and I just didn't like it. Yeah.
And with CJ, you hope that the relationship is strong enough that CJ watches and goes, oh, whatever. It's just Slay being Slay.
I don't know that.
I don't know that either. And we won't have a chance to talk to either guy about it until after the bye week. But yeah, I don't think it's nothing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think when you start seeing this stuff happen in week 5, it's a concern. You just worry about the whole. I mean, they're 2-2. It's not the end of the world. But when you start seeing stuff like this, it makes you wonder about just. I mean, Nick's always talking about culture and all that. It makes you wonder about it.
Yeah. And look, I think Slay has been a good teammate. I think he has been a good captain.
Sure.
He got voted 2 times for a reason by his teammates. So I saw him before the game, like working with Quinyon Mitchell for like 15 minutes by just the 2 of them. So I think he does a lot of things right. I think he just views the game differently than fans do. And I think that's caused a disconnect at times.
Yeah, no, he certainly does. I mean, he looks at it as a job. I mean, he looks at it as a way for guys to make money. Mm-hmm. And he's never shied away from that, even talking about.
And it's not like he wants to lose.
No.
He wants to win. But
yeah, but it's not life or death for him. And I mean, even talking about Trevor Penning and, somebody asked, do you hope he gets fined a lot of money? He's like, I don't want to take money out of anyone's pocket. Mm-hmm. We're all working hard to make money, So yeah, he's different that way, but I don't think he's wrong, but I don't like this other stuff.
I have some fun news before we go to break.
What do you got?
Jason Peters.
39.
39.
41. I don't
know. 39, he's 42.
42.
42-year-old Jason Peters.
Who signed him?
Signing to the Seahawks practice squad.
He's unbelievable. This would be his 21st season.
21st.
If he gets on the field. Didn't play in 2012, obviously, had the Achilles. But, hey, he was with Seattle last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope people will remember when it comes time for Hall of Fame voting how good he was.
He might never be eligible. You have
Right.
to retire to be eligible.
Yeah, he keeps pushing that clock back. Good for him, man. If he wants to keep playing and he can still do it, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I got no problem with it.
At his peak, one of the most fun offensive linemen I've ever seen play.
He's now 8 years removed from his last Pro Bowl. You brought this up a while ago. I mean, I hope, this end of career journeyman stuff, Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, Seahawks, doesn't dilute people's memory of what a great player he was.
Yeah, and it happened toward the end of his time here. He became like a victim of his own success a little bit, that he wasn't the player he once was. He was still like solid for a little while there. Of course, I don't think it helped when he wanted more money to go from right guard to left tackle.
That was an unfortunate episode.
Yeah.
He's 5 years older than BG. And BG's like the oldest Eagle in history, or less. Who's the oldest position player ever? I'm going to look this up here.
I don't know. Is this going to take a long time? Should I fill here?
I have it.
Okay.
It depends on how fast StatHead is, but Jason Peters, you say he's 41. When does he turn?
He's 42. He turns 43 in January.
Tom Brady is the oldest. He's 45. His last year with Tampa. So there's some quarterbacks on here. Steve DeBerg played 44. Warren Moon, Vinny Testaverde, they were all 44. But as far as O-line, the oldest was Ray Brown. Ray Brown from who played for Washington, St. Louis, the Niners, Detroit, Washington. He played when he was 43. So his last game, he was when you get to the game logs for these guys, you have to scroll all the way over to the side of your screen without going up or down. His cousin is Bernard Williams, by the way, who the Eagles just released. He played his last game. He was 43 in 20 days. So JP could catch him.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Brown was a great player. Played 20 years, made one Pro Bowl when he was 39. Anyway, good for JP.
Yeah, good for him. Let's take a break. We have some other stuff coming up on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Okay, Rube, I have in front of me 5 either names or items, and I want to get your rating of concern on these names or items 1 through 10.
Should be 0 through 10 if I have no concern at all.
Okay, 0 through 10.
I don't think that's going to apply, but
yeah, the fact that they're on this list is
right.
I don't have like AJ Brown being good at football on there. 0 being no concern at all, 10 being the sky is falling in this particular area. I'll go randomly here. We'll start with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Has not been very good through 4 games.
Yeah, I would say pretty high, probably a 7.
Oh wow, okay.
6 or 7. The only thing that would mitigate it is I think you have, what do you sign, a 3-year deal?
Yeah.
I mean, you have Sidney, who I'd like to see play, but I'm not going to bench CJ. I don't think. Might get to that point, but yeah, I'll go 6. I'll go 6 or 7. It's probably 7.
7. I think I'm lower than you on this. I'm probably like a 4.
Oh,
it hasn't been very good.
No,
but there have been some good moments. Certainly, the coverage has been a disaster.
He had that one 3rd down stop.
He had the 4th down stop. He had another 3rd down stop. I think there are some good moments in there. Certainly not playing well. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we've seen enough from him in his career that like this is too low. Like he's played at a higher level.
Have we really seen that much from him?
Enough to think he's better than this.
mean, he's got to pick off passes for to
He's
get.
got to make more impact plays.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever going to just be like a super steady safety in this league. I think he's going to give up plays. In order for that to work, he has to make some big plays too, and they haven't been there.
And the thing about CJ, and I'll see if I can find this real quick. Like the 6 interceptions in 2022 were not the. I mean, he's only got 6 other interceptions in parts of 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He only played a few games last year with the Lions. He had 1. He had 5
and he played at a high level when he came back, by the way.
He did. He had 5 in 3 years with the Saints in 43 games. So that hasn't been the rule. That's been an anomaly. 6 picks in 12 games.
Also at a different position.
True. But we'll see. Maybe 7's a little high, but
I just think they have.
I'm concerned.
Other problems that are. Way more.
Well, maybe I set this.
Yeah.
I need to leave.
You're going to be at
some
13
room.
pretty soon.
Yeah, but we'll keep it there.
Nick Sirianni.
I'm gonna go 9.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 9 just because it's been 3-8 in their last 11. I mean, that's almost the equivalent of 2/3 of a season, and it's just one thing after another. And he doesn't seem to have any idea how to fix anything. And the one thing I think he's good at is getting players to believe in themselves, understanding their roles, communicating, setting a culture, and none of that's going well. So, again, the next 4 games all look winnable on paper. They're playing 4 teams that are 3-13. If they go 3-1, if they go 4-0, that number's going to come down. That'll show that he has the ability to get the train back on the tracks. But right now, it's between 8 and 9, probably closer to 9.
Okay, I'm lower on Sirianni too than you, just because I think his role is more minimal this year with the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator in place.
Well, the 9 is for what his role is. I mean, I don't think he's doing that well.
Certainly not doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, when you overrule the offensive coordinator on the most critical play of the game, and talking about just before halftime, and the play blows up, and I mean, I take that into account too. And
yeah, you should.
That's goes into the offensive side of it.
Yeah, no, certainly. But I still think his role is more minimal this year because you have the defensive coordinator, you have the offensive coordinator. Things are bad. I'd put him at a 7 or 8. I'd probably go 7 just to be a little more different than you. I think it is a concern. No doubt. It's unraveling.
I'm losing a lot of faith in him. But again, they did go down to Brazil and beat the Packers. They did go down to New Orleans and beat the Saints. And I was just looking this up. I'm
going 8. 7's too low.
It is too low.
Yeah.
So the last 8 times they were 2-2, they made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they didn't was 83, Marion Campbell's first year.
Okay.
Swamp Fox was his nickname.
Okay.
He was a hell of a defensive coordinator, by the way. People just think of him. He has the worst 1-loss record of any head coach in history. But he was a great D coordinator and a great player too. He made the team of the decade. Nice man. Terrible head coach.
All right. Next item here. Missed tackles.
I don't want to go too high because, I mean, in the Saints game, they tackled well.
Yeah, I think there's just some ebbs and flows to missed tackles.
Yeah, but it's a concern because it's more than just it's a lot of people. I'd probably go with a 6.
I'm probably a 5. Yeah, I think that
you're lower than me on everything.
I won't be for the next one, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'll just go 10, so you have to be.
I'll go 11. It's an issue.
This one,
but I also don't know. I think there's some some unpredictability with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if I think that there'll be some natural regression to the mean here.
Yeah, you got to hope so. If I say this one goes to 11, do you know what that's a reference to?
No.
You really don't?
I don't.
The greatest movie ever made. This is Spinal Tap.
Oh, okay.
when he's showing Meathead. What's the guy from All in the Family? Meathead. Michael. What's his real name?
I don't know.
So he's interviewing the guitar player from Spinal Tap guitar player. I guess it's Nigel Tufnell. And his amp goes to 10, and then it's written in marker. It says 11.
Okay. I do know the scene now.
And he's like, why does it say 11? It's like, well, this is a really loud amp. This one goes to 11. And he says, well, why don't you just make 10 like the loudest, make what's 11 now, make that 10. And he stares at me, he goes, this one goes to 11. Brilliant. I probably didn't express it well enough, but funny movie. Anyway, this one goes to 11. So what do you got? I'm going to go to 11 here.
Eagles pass rush.
Yeah, that might be still my biggest concern. I'm going to go 9.
I'm going 9 too.
Yeah.
10, I can't say 10 because I think that Jalen Carter's still going to get some opportunities one-on-one. He's going to win them here and there. Josh Sweat's been like, I don't know, a little better. Brandon Graham's playing well. It's a huge concern though, because I don't think they have the people in the building to fix it.
Yeah. And they don't really have the assets to bring more people into the building because the money you gave Huff, I mean, Sweat will be a free agent. He probably won't be back. PG's going to re-sign. He might ask for $12 million to play next year. Yeah, they've devoted so much money to that position. Nolan was a first-round pick. He's got 2 years left. So they're really in a position where they can't add anybody.
You're stuck with what you have, and it's not looking great.
And by the way, people have been asking about bringing Reddick back. There's a rule that I did not know about.
Yeah, Ian Rappaport reported this, that you can't trade back for a player within 2 years of trading him.
Yeah.
So theoretically, like he could be cut and then you could sign a player, but that's not going to happen. So
no. I mean, I don't think they were going to do that anyway.
Weird rule, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's protecting.
Yeah, it was. Did not expect to see that, but yeah, I'm sure there's a reason for it.
We're Isaiah Rodgers. We don't know the rules. Last one, Jalen Hurts.
The number's going up. It's just steadily going up. Like if you'd asked me after week 1, I just said a 4.
I'm an 8.
That's a little higher than me.
Because for me, it's not just this season. Like it's a problem beyond this season if he's not who they thought he was.
Yeah.
And it's like a limited sample size, so I don't want to jump to conclusions.
That was the lead to my story today. I wrote about his turnover. I said at some point it's not a slump, it's who he is. That's exactly what I wrote.
You can fire the head coach, and they probably will if things don't go well. You're stuck with Jalen for a little bit longer.
Yeah. I'm going to go 7. I mean, I think he's still doing some good things, and maybe not Sunday as much, but first 3 games he did some good things. He's completing a high percentage of his passes. He's at like 68, 69% for the year. He hasn't had his receivers.
And maybe it's that simple, right?
It could be. But I'm getting pretty concerned. Slow starts are largely on him, not all on him. And I feel like he doesn't have any answers. Like, he's so... Yeah, it's fairly high. What did you go? You went 8?
I went 8.
Yeah, I'll go 7.
We have a request from Alex here, our producer, Alex. Vic Fangio on the concernometer, real quick. Where are you at there?
I'm not real high on Vic. I don't mean I'm not real high on him. I'd say a 4. I just don't think he has the players.
I'm like a 5. He might not have the players. I also think there's a chance that the Eagles, like right now, what we've seen from this defense is like they're really good against bigger personnel packages when most of the league in 2024 is in 11 personnel.
Yeah.
That's a little troubling.
Yeah.
Like this defense would be great in 1992, but it's 2024.
And Vic was great in 1992.
All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions before we finish out this pod.
Yeah.
As a reminder, eagle-eye at NBCUni.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have that QR code. You can scan it. Feel free to send in questions. We're going to do a Thursday episode this week. Just all questions. We're a little backlogged in the email, but send some looking forward into the bye and through the rest of the season, because a lot of the questions we have today were from this game and some came during the game. Let's get a sampling of some of these. First one from Jonathan. Afternoon, gentlemen. I'm watching the Eagles get shellacked by the Bucs again. It sucks, and I'm going to mow the grass. Have a great rest of your weekend and love the show.
What if he has a zero turn?
I don't know, but I like Jonathan's outlook. He's not going to let a football game ruin his Sunday. He's going to go mow the lawn, get a little outside time, get some vitamin D, see the sun shine a little bit.
See, I never do that. And it's a personal thing. Like if a team I'm rooting for, I'll watch till the end of the game, no matter how bad it gets.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. I feel like I'll enjoy the wins more if I put myself through the losses.
Oh my God. We're going to have a psychiatrist on to analyze that.
Or Finer. He's got like staff psychiatrist.
All right. Next one from Joshua. Jalen is incompetent. How did this happen? Rube should start at QB coming out of the bye. You ready?
I don't think they're out of practice squad elevations for me. They'd have to sign me. He's not incompetent. He's struggling right now. He's done some good things.
Yeah, I think he's a talented player.
Yeah.
Who needs to get back on track.
Yeah. Look, he's had a lot of injuries too. And I wonder if there's a cumulative effect with him because he just doesn't look like the same guy.
From John, happy overreaction Sunday night, guys. I anticipate there will be a lot of Nick Sirianni emails coming in, and there were. So might as well throw my hand in the bucket. I understand that Nick wants to take responsibility for the team's poor performance, but clearly there is a lot of responsibility on the players to execute. Is he just taking the heat for media purposes, or do we think he's relaying similar sentiments to the players? I would be extremely concerned if he's not holding his players accountable for their mistakes. That's a crucial piece of development, especially for the young players on the team.
Yeah, he's always going to protect all his guys in press conferences, but from
sometimes too much, but
sometimes certainly too much. But yeah, I mean, he'll get on guys behind closed doors. I don't know to what extent, and I don't know if it's enough.
Well, I mean, the one thing we've heard about him is like in his team meetings, it's been a staple of his team meetings. He will show a play on the board and someone makes a mistake. He will flash that number up on the screen, no matter who it is. So,
and he said that again. He's told us that for years, but he told us that again.
And we've heard that from players too. It's not just BS.
Yeah, but he told us that on Monday in response to a question about Jalen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so he said that's for everybody. He wouldn't say, Jalen, but he said that's for everybody. So he's doing that. And yeah, he'll always do that, but he's just not he'll never throw a player under the bus in public.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of his job right now is to kind of be like a lightning rod, like take all the criticism and shield it from the players, from the coordinators, from ownership for bringing him back in the first place, the GM for having some big swings and misses in the offseason. A lot of it just comes down to Nick getting blamed. He deserves a lot of it, probably not all of it. Next question here from Jim. Oh, I'm sorry, from Brendan. I know hindsight's 2020, and they didn't want to overpay for him, but how do they not get Reddick to stay here? I know he wanted the big contract, but it's not an overpay if he performs. Double-digit sack guys don't grow on trees. Even if he wasn't a first-team All-Pro this year, his play would have elevated those around him.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing. I think they thought that Huff would. I mean, Huff had 10 sacks last year. How many did Reddick have? 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. I mean, they thought they could get a much cheaper version of Reddick.
To this point, looks like a gross miscalculation.
Well, they have the same number of sacks, same number of hurries. But yeah, it does. It looks like a huge misjudgment. I think, there's Hassan. When you have a player who's been, and I like Hassan. I like him, but he's now been on 4 teams in 5 years, and there's usually a reason for that when a guy is on that many teams. And he's kind of, you see what's going on with the Jets, and I'm not saying he would have done that here, but he's lost $9 billion. What are you thinking? It's like I think he's just seen by the front office as a guy who makes trouble for himself and for the team, and he speaks his mind. I mean, when they changed D coordinators, he was the only guy in that locker room to say, "This is really hard."
Kevin Byard too.
Okay, but he was one of 2 guys to say this is like really hard to do. We got, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where to go. We got, you can't change defensive coordinators in the middle of the season. I just think he's viewed as a potential problem by management.
Yeah.
But he's really good. $9 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Howie could go back in time and just pay him, he would have.
Most likely.
And at the time, like, I think we're both saying that at the time, or at least I know I was like, pay this guy.
Sure. Yeah.
He's productive.
Yeah.
Next question from Jim. Hey guys, love the pod. It's the first podcast I listen to every Monday morning on my way to work.
I'm sorry. He's also obviously a lot older than Huff, and I think that was part of the equation too. You're getting a younger guy cheaper. So,
sure.
Yeah.
From Jim. Hey guys, love the pod. It's the first podcast I listen to every Monday morning on my way to work. I always look forward to hearing your opinions on the game each week. Rue bringing up the fact that the Eagles haven't scored a first quarter point all year made me wonder how coaches are scripting the first 10 to 15 plays of every game. Is it possible that Nick is pushing for more of his plays to be included in the scripted plays to start the game each week? Does the offense start to play better when Moore is able to get in the flow of calling his plays? I don't know if we'll ever know the answer, but after hearing that Nick sometimes calls plays during the game, I can't help but wonder if he is overstepping in this as well. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Kellen was asked about the first 15 plays today. I mean, he didn't really have much to offer.
He did say that a lot of it is like kind of testing the waters, getting the ball to your key players, but seeing how the defense is going to play you.
Yeah. And the other thing about 15, like you don't know when you're scripting those plays, you don't know what the defense is going to be doing. So a lot of times you're going away from that script really early. He didn't really have much to say. I don't think. I mean, obviously there's plays in those 15 that are Nick plays, that are plays that were part of the playbook last year. I mean, I don't think they've hidden that, but I think Kellen has autonomy for putting that together. I'm sure Nick's there when he's doing it, or they go through it, they go over it. But
I think it's reasonable to think that Nick has more influence on the opening script than he does the rest of the game, though.
Just logistically, he would. Yeah, I'm sure it's somewhat collaborative. But beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's a problem.
By the way, as far as the 6 straight games without I looked this up this morning. Now, the team streak finder only goes back to 1970.
Okay.
Well, they haven't gone 6 games in that period without scoring a first quarter point. So then I had to go game by game, year by year. So what I did was that there's a touchdown log on each team's page. So you can look at that and see if there's a gap of close to, of 6 games where they didn't score a touchdown. So that's the easy part. Then when you find that gap, you have to go through each box score to see if they scored. And I found it. I went back to 1955. They went 7 straight games without scoring a point in the first quarter from starting with week 4. They played at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. And then ending the 7th game of the streak was a loss to the Rams at Connie Mack Stadium. So they were playing in a lot of baseball stadiums back then. The streak ended in week 11 when Dick Bielski kicked a 24-yard field goal in the first quarter of a game against the Cards, also at Connie Mack Stadium. Dick Bielski in that game kicked 2 field goals and ran for a touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a big game for old Dick Bielski.
Good for him.
Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
I like that. We'll do one more question and then we'll save the rest of these for Thursday. Hey guys, I appreciate your insights each pod. Have you ever seen so many players playing positions that they didn't practice in training camp?
Dick Bielski was born in Maple Shade, by the way. That's interesting.
Nice town friendly people. Any idea why they are doing it?
What was the question? I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Oh gosh.
I was going through Dick Bielski's bio here.
Hey guys.
He was first round. He was a top 10 pick. Yes.
Hey guys, I appreciate your insights each pod. Have you ever seen so many players playing positions that they didn't practice in training camp? Any idea of why they are doing it? And he gave some examples. Devin White, starting linebacker, not even dressing. Quinyon Mitchell, slot cornerback, now at outside cornerback. Avonte Maddox at safety, now the nickel corner. Landon Dickerson, left guard, playing center in the game. Dickerson was fine, probably the best choice, but why not practice? Does practice even matter?
Well, they get reps. They'll get a few reps at positions that they may play.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and especially in training camp, we would see guys all over the place. Avante, we saw him at safety and saw him in the slot. I'm not sure we saw him at outside corner at all, but yeah, and like if a guy takes a day off or is hurt or misses practice, they'll move guys around, and so those guys have taken reps. Yeah. You're not going to put a guy. It might not be a lot of reps, but you're not going to put a guy somewhere he's never, unless you have to, just because there's so many injuries at one position.
Yeah, I do think it's like a fair point with some of these. Like Devin White thought he was a starting linebacker because he lined up with the first team every day,
except one
in practice. Like, I think it was a reasonable expectation for him to think.
Well, he said that
he was a starter, and it was reasonable for the rest of us to think it too. Like, so I think that was a little.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. It's not the position. It's the depth chart. But
sure.
Yeah, I asked him that the day he got benched, or the day Vic told us that Nakobe was going to be the starter. I said, you got the first set of reps with the first team defense every day except joint practice in Foxborough, which I still don't understand why Nakobe got him that day, but he did. And he said, well, yeah, you would think. I said, doesn't that tell you you're going to be the starter? So you would think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then Quignon, like, he playing some outside, but didn't really get a ton of just outside reps. Yeah. I guess they're trying to bring him along slowly, but
it was interesting that, it was Keeley versus Isaiah. Mm-hmm. And I think they just wanted him to get as many reps in the slot as possible because that was the new position for him.
But then the trickle down there was that Avante wasn't getting those nickel reps that, he's played in this league a long time, but he hasn't played in this exact defense.
Right.
Those might have helped him a little bit.
Avante played 6 games for 4 defensive coordinators. So like he played in the Super Bowl. So that's, and then he played like 2 games under Sean Desai, 1 under Matt Patricia. And then, so his first game, the Brazil game under Vic, was like his 6th game under 4 coordinators. So that's got to be a lot going on up there. But anyway, it's fair. I think guys pretty much for the most part are getting reps at other positions.
Okay. That's all. If you have a question, eagle@nbcuni.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan that QR code. This is where I remind everyone that if you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, you have any final thoughts?
Well, no, I don't think we'll be back down to the NovaCare till a week from Wednesday. I'm guessing, since we already talked to coordinators. So our next couple podcasts, we're going to be kind of going through a lot of questions. So I want to see a lot of questions in the email bin for the next couple of pods. And they're fun to answer. I enjoy them. And the questions have been really good. So keep them coming.
Sounds good, everyone. This has been the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. We'll talk to you soon.